Okay, so I'm here at a coffee place after having gotten dressed up this morning to go to the county courthouse for jury duty, and I didn't get selected. But some interesting things that came up. 'Cause some people did get selected to serve today, and some serving the next say couple of days. But I'm looking here at the email that was sent to me after everything came in, and I had gone online to take care of things, for qualifying. And there's very few directions on here, but something that's interesting, that's what's in bold, is they say to please wear the appropriate clothing befitting the dignity and solemnity of court proceedings. Um, but they don't, except for this one line right under it that is bold and in italics, saying you're not permitted to wear shorts. There's really nothing else that they stipulate as far as what constitutes appropriate clothing. And so the reason that comes up is because here it is. I mean, I don't think necessarily anyone would have to get so dressed up as wear a tie and all of this, and had a suit jacket on and all this. But some people, I thought, so there's certain assumptions that are being made as far as the level of understanding that someone might have as to what would be appropriate attire, that's for the dignity and solemnity of court proceedings. And so, someone was in their sweats, sweatshirts and this sort of thing, and without knowing whether or not they would be chosen to serve. Actually, one or two groups served 30 minutes after being called, right? So they don't have time to go home and change all that if they happen to be called and wearing that kind of attire. So that's one thing about the assumptions. But the other that I thought was interesting is they were talking about the qualifications and those things that would then disqualify someone for serving. Some of it was understandable if they weren't a resident of the county or if they were not a U.S. citizen, this sort of thing, because they kept talking about the jury of peers. But one of the stipulations was they had people had to be literate. They had to have the ability to read and write. Now they didn't necessarily say in English, but of course I think that was probably the assumption as well. But it made me think about how. So if the idea is that the reason someone is selected to actually serve is because they talk in this video that they were showing us about how it's not about someone's level of education, so not necessarily wanting everyone to be college educated and this sort of thing, and yet to say that someone they talk about that they're looking for those to for jurors to have the ability to reason and to be fair-minded. And so what does it say though, to say that they're only people who are illiterate have that ability, right? Who's to say that my grandparents on my mother's side were hardly literate. My grandmother had a third grade education. My grandfather had an eighth grade education. So, at what level of the ability to read and write does someone have to have in order to participate in what they were talking about is perhaps the most important role in the legal system. And so that's just something I wanted to kind of think about or talk about, because we're placing the value of someone's ability to reason on a really kind of narrow set of abilities there, right? So what does that say about knowledge and knowledge production? And as an educator, that's something that's very important to me, because there are times I have varying, depending on where I'm teaching, varying levels of ability, and I've had to, in the classroom, look at how I can make adjustments for those students whose whose abilities to read and write, even being in a college class, that how can I help them demonstrate their knowledge outside of ways that might not be a normative assessment. So whether that's happening within an educational institution or within our legal system, who is then allowed the ability to have a voice in that process, and who's excluded from it. So that's all I have for now.